Oh, bro, I'm not even touching this. What the hell is wrong with this? Why are you holding
That's
me?
great proof right there. There's a spark. So this is my engine block. I got the pull start, exhaust, carburetor, gas tank, everything on here. So now what we're gonna do is gonna take this all apart and put it back together and lay it all out, show you all the pieces. So what we're gonna do is start with an 11mm wrench and take off the pull start.
So I just took off the pull start right here, and right after I took off the pull start here, I'm going to be taking off the carburetor and gas tank and exhaust using a 11mm wrench. So right here I got the carburetor and gas tank off, so I'm using a flathead screwdriver to remove the carburetor from the gas tank. So what I'm going to be doing here is taking a 6mm wrench to remove the magneto from my engine. I'm also going to use it to remove this blue pressure escape. So this is the blue pressure escape. So over here I'm going to be using a 13mm wrench to remove the cylinder head. So I moved the cylinder head, and over here I'm also removing the spark plug using a 5/8 wrench, a spark plug wrench. So that's the spark plug, and this is my cylinder head, and I've also got a gasket underneath. Just do that, and then I've also got a gasket underneath right on there. Right there's a gasket. So here I'm using a 7/16 wrench to remove the side panel of the engine block. So here I'm also using a 7/16 wrench to remove the little the thing that keeps the piston on the crankshaft, and the little piece that flicks oil up into the whole like conjunction there. And over here I'm just tapping the piece so it falls down, since it's like it was tightened on this, so it's like stuck. There it is. I'm also removing the camshaft here. Along with the camshaft, I'm also going to be removing the tappet lifters. Those are the tappet lifters, and before that was the camshaft. And after this, I'm going to be removing my flywheel and clutch. So that's the clutch. And this should be the flywheel, but the flywheel also has a little small flywheel pin. So I gotta keep that safe. Should be right in there. Yeah, right there. There it is. That's the flywheel pin. And then that's the big flywheel. Just put that inside. And then here I'm taking out the piston, and the piston also has piston rings, so I'm just going to be taking that out. And once this is out, I'm going to take out the crankshaft, and that's the crankshaft. Then after this, I'm going to be removing the springs, retainers, and valves using a spring compressor. At this point, the spring compressor was getting a little annoying, and I wasn't figuring it out, so I tried using a screwdriver and wrench. With that, I was able to pull it up and figure out where the hole is, where the opening is in the retainer. And then for the second one, I was able to use the spring compressor to take out the springs and retainers. Then I used a lifter tappet to remove the valve for both of them. And then I pushed that one in to move the other valve. And then those are the two valves. And then there's also the two springs and retainers are in here. So I'm just putting them in my hand. The small piece is the retainer, the big one is the spring. Just shot over there with the retainer. So those are the springs and retainers. And these are the final pieces that came out. So here I'm putting the springs, retainers, and valves back in using the spring compressor. And for this you have to use a spring compressor. You cannot use a wrench or a screwdriver like I did before, because you need to compress the spring, then uncompress the spring. The wrenches and screwdrivers can only compress, they can't really uncompress it while it's in there.
So over here I have all my parts laid out. I have my cylinder head with the spark plug, the crankshaft, camshaft. I got my two lifters here, which would go with the camshaft, like something like that. I got my carburetor, exhaust, and this is like a pressure escape for right over here where my two retainers and springs are. I also got my valves over here in my gas tank cap. My piston rings are on here on my piston here. And I got these two parts here. I got my magneto, my flywheel, and the clutch. Also got the flywheel pin here for the flywheel when I'm going to put it in. It's going to go in right over there. Right over there, like a little hole slip for it. And I've got all the screws I used in this bucket here. And I've also got two gaskets. One over here when I'm gonna put it on. The other one is for when I'm gonna connect the carburetor to the gas tank. I also had the side panel for the engine block and the pull start. I was missing these two parts because someone stole it. However, I was able to find some brand new ones, and I'm gonna also put these back onto my engine. So let's just get back to.
So over here I'm putting the crankshaft back in, and once I put the crankshaft in, I'm going to be putting the lifters and the tappets back in along with the camshaft. However, before I put the camshaft in, you have to find the timing marks on the camshaft. So that's the timing mark on the camshaft, and the crankshaft also has another timing mark you have to line up. So once I put it in there, there's the two timing marks you have to line up, or else the timing with the valves and compression and of the spring will not be proper. And over here I'm going to be putting the piston into the engine. In order to put the piston in, I used a flathead screwdriver to push in all the piston rings. And over here I'm just spinning the piston to make it down, to make it easier to put the other piece, which makes sure it does not come off the crankshaft. And I'm also going to be using this other piece which helps shoot up oil. And to do this, I'm using a 7/16 wrench. So over here I'm going to be putting a side panel on, and with the side panel I'm going to be using a 7/16 wrench. I also took a hammer there, I just tapped it lightly because it wasn't going in. And over here I'm just using a 7/16 wrench to put in the bolts for the side panel. And over here I'm going to be screwing on my carburetor to my gas tank. To use this, I used a flathead screwdriver. I also put in a gasket before the carburetor and gas tank. So over here I'm going to be screwing on my cylinder head to my engine block using a 13mm wrench. And over here I was torquing the cylinder head bolts to roughly 18 to 20 foot-pounds. I torqued each one of them. Here I was putting in my spark plug using a 5/8 spark plug wrench. So what I'm doing over here is putting on the carburetor and exhaust. Right here is the gasket, which is going to go right there. And that's the carburetor, and the gasket is just going to go there. I'm going to just tighten on the carburetor to the engine block using a 7/16 wrench. This right here is just the exhaust I'm screwing on. And then over here I'm going to screw on the magneto using a 6mm wrench. I just connected it to a spark plug there, and here I'm going to be screwing on the pressure escape, again using a 6mm wrench. Over here I'm just going to be putting on the pull start. And before I had a different one, but the holes for the bolts didn't line up properly with the engine block. So this one does, so I'm going to be using this one. And to do this, I'm going to be using a 12mm wrench.